Hello and welcome to Blake's Pai Sho Academy. I am Blake, and today I will be teaching you how to play Skud Pai Sho. There are timestamps for when I cover different parts of the game, so you can come back to this video if you ever need to skip around and refresh your memory on any rules. Let's get right into it. Skud Pai Sho is a two-player turn-based board game where both players play against each other. One player is the host, which usually means they have the lighter game pieces, and the other player is the guest, usually with the darker game pieces. This is the board on which the game takes place. In Skud Pai Sho, all play is done on the intersections of the lines, and this is where the game pieces will lie, not on the empty spaces. On this site, the board will be orientated for you like this, with the lower big red triangle on the left. You will see on the board that there are 4 small red triangles on the sides, and with a single point or intersection completely inside these triangles. These points are called gates, and they can be referred to as the north, east, south, and west gates. All you need to know is that they are called gates. The rest of the board is split up into different parts, which are called gardens. First, you have these tan or brown areas, which are called neutral gardens. And in the center here, you will have these red and white triangles, which are the red and white gardens. Other than the board, each player has their own set of game pieces referred to as tiles, and these are the player's tiles reserves. Each player has 3 tiles of each basic flower, as you can see here, as well as 1 tile for each special flower, which are these 2. Other than the flowers, each player has 2 of each of these tiles here, which are called accent tiles. But only 4 of these accent tiles will be used in a single game for each player. I'll explain what exactly that means when discussing the setup for the game. Now, the objective of Skud Pai Sho is to be the first player to form what is called a harmony ring. A harmony ring is a connected chain of harmonies that surrounds the center point of the board without touching it. I'll show this here as an example of what a harmony ring might look like, and you can see here in this game that the guest has won by creating a harmony ring. Now before I go over what a turn in Skud Pai Sho can look like, I need to explain what exactly a harmony is. The rulebook definition of what a harmony is as follows. A harmony is created when 2 harmonious blooming flower tiles belonging to the same player are on the same line with no other tiles or gates between them. Now let me break this down. First, a blooming flower is any flower tile that is not in a gate, but on the board. And harmonious flowers simply means that they can harmonize with each other. Now, which flowers are harmonious with which? Well, there's this very helpful graphic that I usually recommend beginners to reference when learning. If you look here in the help section of Skud Pai Sho and click rules page and scroll down, you will find this. This is very helpful for quickly learning which flowers are harmonious with each other. And you will see here that each basic flower tile is shown. And what you want to pay attention to for knowing which flowers can harmonize with each other are the green lines. Any flowers connected to each other with a green line can harmonize with each other. Now, the opposite of harmonious flowers are clashing flowers, which you can see here with these red lines. Any flowers connected by a straight red line are clashing. What does this mean? Well, at any point of the game, 2 clashing flowers can never be on the same line without a different tile or gate in between them. Clashing flowers are also able to capture each other if they belong to different players. I'll go more in depth with basic flower tiles and their movement and capturing ability later. The last part I will cover before going over a turn in Skud Pai Sho is the setup for the game. The first thing that happens is the host chooses their accent tiles for the game. When choosing your accent tiles, you pick 4 tiles from the pool of 8. You may use the 4 you chose during the game, and the remaining 4 are set aside and not used. After the host chooses their accent tiles, the guest will do the same and choose theirs. After all accent tiles have been chosen, the guest then chooses a basic flower. Each player begins the game with a basic flower tile of theirs matching the basic flower that the guest chose, and these tiles will be placed in gates on opposite sides of the board, as shown here. Now let's go over what a turn looks like. When it is your turn, there are 2 things you can do. The first option is to plant a flower. At the beginning of your turn, you can choose to plant any of the basic flower tiles. To plant a flower tile, you take it from your reserve and place it on the intersection of any gate that does not currently have a flower tile there. The other option you have at the start of your turn is to move any flowers you already have placed on the board. When moving a tile, it can move up, right, down, or left along the lines from point to point, not diagonally, and it moves up to the tile's maximum move distance. Now there is potentially a second part of your turn if you do choose to move a flower. If you move a flower, and this move results in creating a new harmony between 2 of your flowers, then you gain what is called a harmony bonus for the turn. A new harmony is a harmony between two tiles that were not in harmony with each other at the beginning of your turn. Now with this harmony bonus that you gain, there are 3 different things you can do. The first option is, you may place any one of your accent tiles. Your second option is, you are able to plant one of your special flower tiles in an open gate. Your third and final option can only be chosen if you currently do not have any flowers in gates. If this is the case, you may plant one basic flower tile from your reserve in an empty gate. As an additional note for moving, once a flower tile leaves a gate, it can never move onto a gate. Now that you know what a turn consists of, I will go over what exactly all these different tiles do, as they do have different properties. Starting with the basic flower tiles, there are 6 different types of basic flowers. 3 red flowers, a rose, chrysanthemum, and rhododendron. And then there are 3 white flowers, the jasmine, lily, and white jade. Now these are their formal names, but you will not typically hear these. They are usually called either red or white, followed by a number, as you can see in the graphic I showed earlier. That number is the tile's maximum move distance. So for example, the rose, or the red 3, is a red flower, and it can move up to 3 spaces. Now what do the red and white colors mean for basic flower tiles? It's pretty simple. If the flower is white, it can move onto the points completely within the white gardens. However, they cannot move onto the points completely within the red gardens. And red flowers can go into red gardens, but cannot enter white gardens. That is how basic flower tiles move, and you already learned how they harmonize and what clashing means, which you can see here. These flowers have their movement restricted as they are clashing, which, as I said earlier, means they cannot be on the same line without a tile in between them. There is another part of clashing though that I mentioned earlier, and this is shown here, where clashing flowers are able to capture each other. If they belong to different players, you cannot capture your own tiles. The way capturing works in Skud Pai Sho is just by moving one tile onto the same point as the other and removing the captured tile from play. That is it for the basic flower tiles. Now, moving on to the special flower tiles. There are only 2 that can cause a lot of confusion for new players. We will start with the simpler of the 2, which is the white lotus tile. This tile can move up to 2 spaces, and it harmonizes with every basic flower tile, every single one, including basic flower tiles that do not belong to the owner of the white lotus tile, as you can see here. And when a white lotus tile does form a harmony with a tile that belongs to the other player, that harmony belongs to the owner of the basic flower tile, not the owner of the white lotus tile. The white lotus tile does not clash with any flower tiles. The only other special flower tile is the orchid. The orchid tile moves up to 6 spaces and does not harmonize or clash with any flower tiles. The orchid has some special properties, being a special flower tile. The first property is being able to trap flower tiles. The orchid does this by being on a surrounding space of a flower tile. For Skud Pai Sho, surrounding means any one of these 8 spaces I have highlighted here. So up, right, down, left, or diagonally. When a flower tile is trapped by the orchid, it cannot move at all. Now there is one other part to the orchid tile. The orchid actually has 2 states it can be in. Its normal state, which doesn't have anything special about it, and the wild orchid state. Now when the orchid is in its wild state, it can capture any flower tile, but it can also be captured by any flower tile, making it powerful but also vulnerable. By default, the orchid is in its normal state. An orchid becomes wild if the owner of the orchid also has a blooming white lotus tile on the board. And again, I'll reiterate that blooming means outside of a gate. And just one other note to make it clear, if your orchid is wild, it still cannot be captured by your own pieces. That's all for the special flower tiles. The only remaining tile type is the accent tiles. There are 4 unique accent tiles. Just as a reminder, accent tiles can only be used if you have gained a harmony bonus on your turn. The first accent tile I will talk about is the wheel tile. When you use the wheel tile, you may place it on any open point that is not a gate or that does not move any tiles into illegal positions, such as moving a tile into a gate or moving clashing tiles onto the same line without a tile between them. You can also not place the wheel on any surrounding space of any rock tile. Once you place the wheel tile, all surrounding tiles to the wheel move 1 space clockwise, as shown. The rock tile. When you use the rock tile, you may place it on any open point of the board that is not a gate, and once the rock tile is on the board, no harmonies can be formed along the lines that the rock tile lies on. The Knotweed. When you use the Knotweed tile, you may place it on any open point of the board that is not a gate, and when on the board, any tiles on surrounding spaces to the Knotweed are unable to form harmonies. Finally, the Boat Tile. When you use the Boat Tile, you can use it in two different ways. First, you may use it on a flower tile, meaning you place the boat onto the same point of the flower tile you're using the boat on, you take off the flower tile and place it on one of the points surrounding the boat tile that you just placed. The second way you can use the boat tile is by using it on an accent tile. When you do, remove the accent tile you're using the boat on from the game, and also remove the boat tile you just used from the game. Lastly, the final thing you'll need to know about Skud Pai Sho in order to play a full game is how to end the game. There are two ways to end the game of Skud Pai Sho, three if you count resignation. The first and most common way a game of Skud Pai Sho ends is when a player forms a harmony ring. As you can see here, guest has formed a ring of harmonies around the center point of the board and has won. It is also possible to have a tie when ending the game this way. If when a player forms a harmony ring, the other player also forms a harmony ring on the same move, it is deemed a draw. You can see an example of that here. The other way the game can end is when someone places their last basic flower tile onto the board. When this happens, the player with the most amount of harmonies that cross one of the 4 midlines wins. If both players have the same amount of midline crossing harmonies, then the game is ruled as a draw. That is all the rules to Skud Pai Sho. You have everything you need to play a full game. I will now quickly demonstrate a full game of Skud Pai Sho. I know that if I were learning this game, I would like to see a full game as an example. So that is what I am going to do, and I'm going to try to show as many game mechanics as I can. If you don't need an example, feel free to stop watching here. Okay, I will now be showing the example game. I do not have a script for this, so I apologize if I am not as coherent. But all I've done here is I've gone to the skudpaisho.com website. It'll open a random variant to start with, but I'm just going to go to New, click on Skud Pai Sho, and for this, whenever you're making a Skud Pai Sho game, by default you'll be the host. The first things first, like I said and explained in the rules, the host must choose their accent tiles. So you can choose any arrangement of accent tiles you want here. You could do 2 rocks, 2 wheels, you could do 2 rocks, a wheel, a knotweed, whatever. For this, I am going to be choosing one of each so that I can showcase as much as I can. So I'm going to say local game only. Now I would have put up the game with me as the host and I chose my accent tiles. Right now I'm also the guest, but someone would join the game and they'd become the guest, and now they have to choose their accent tiles. So for the guest, I'll also just do one of each. Now, the guest must choose the first flower to be placed for both players in the gates. For this, I'll be choosing a jasmine, or as most people call it, a white 3. Now, the guest must make the first move of the game. I'm just going to be moving the jasmine out. You can see here how it moves. You've already seen that throughout the video. I'm going to be moving it here. And that is guest's turn. They moved a flower for their turn. Now it is host's turn. For host, I'll be planting a flower here. Guest's turn, they could move this flower, or their only other option is to plant a basic flower tile, so they will be doing that. Host will be moving the flower out. Now guest wants to get this flower out and make a harmony. So they're going to do this. They're on the same line, nothing in between. These 2 flowers harmonize. You can check that in the graphic that I showed. But these 2 flowers do harmonize, they make a harmony. Now you get a harmony bonus. You can choose to skip the harmony bonus. I don't know if I said that when explaining the rules, so you don't need to do anything with the harmony bonus. But you can. You could use an accent tile, like I showed. You could plant a special flower tile, Lotus or Orchid. And since this is guest who's using their harmony bonus, they don't have any tiles, any flowers, and gates. They could also plant a basic flower tile if they wanted to. So for this, I think I'll be planting the white lotus up here. Now it is host's turn. Now I can show here I'll move the Lotus tile here. So you can see it has this glow, so it is harmonizing with this flower here, even though they are from opposite players. And also, something to note that maybe it wasn't so clear before, they are directly adjacent to each other. There's no spaces in between them. You are still able to form harmonies this way. They do not need to be spaced out like these two. And, as I explained earlier, since it is the host's basic flower tile that is part of this harmony of the Lotus, this harmony actually belongs to the host. So even though the guests moved their Lotus and made a harmony with it, it is not theirs, so they do not get a harmony bonus. So now it is just host's turn. They'll move here. Now they have their own harmony bonus. And for this example, I'll be placing a rock right here. So now it is guest's turn, and maybe they want to create a harmony on this line with this Jasmine and their Lotus. If they move here, you'll see that no harmony can take place because this rock is on this line, preventing all harmonies on these lines. So that's how you can see the rock works. Now it is host's turn. They will choose to move their Jasmine to harmonize with this Lotus. So they made a new harmony. It is not with their own flower, but it is with the Lotus, so they own this harmony and they get a harmony bonus off of it. And they'll be using this to plant a basic flower tile. Now guest will be choosing to plant a new basic flower tile. Host will be moving out, and they will plant with their harmony bonus an orchid. Now the guest will move their Jasmine out, and you can see here they're able to form a harmony. Something that confused at least me a little bit when I started out was the rock cancels harmonies on this line, but that only means harmonies that lie directly on this line. So you can see this harmony here between the Lotus and the Jasmine goes directly on this line that the rock is on. So that's why it's canceled out. This flower lies on the same line as the rock, and for me, I sometimes was confused and thought this flower shouldn't be able to form a harmony, but the harmony itself is not on that line, and that's all that matters. So you are able to form a harmony there. Just in case that also confused some other people. Now guest does have a harmony bonus, and they will be planting a orchid. Now it is host's turn. They have this orchid, but as you can see, they have no blooming white lotus, so this orchid is in its normal state. It is not wild. It cannot capture any pieces, but you can move next to a piece, and now this piece is trapped. It will be grayed out here. They can still form a harmony, of course, but it is guest's turn, and they're trying to move this Jasmine, but they cannot because it is trapped by the orchid. Now this orchid is a different case. Guest has their Lotus out. It is blooming, so this orchid is wild, and if they wanted to, they can capture this Jasmine, which I guess they'll do. And you can see how capturing works. You just move to the same space, the tile is gone from the game. It doesn't go back to your reserve, it's gone. Now it is host's turn. They will be planting a flower here. Guest will move their Jasmine here. Now, I wanted to show this off. This is a red 3, this is a white 3. They're clashing flowers. So you can see here, this red 3's movement is restricted. It cannot move here because it would be on the same line as this clashing flower. It also can't move here because it would be on the same line. And it can't move here because it would be on the same line. But you can also see, it's hard to tell because it's also grayed out by the orchid, but you can capture it. Because they're clashing, you move the rose on top of the Jasmine and it is captured. Now it is guest's turn. They're going to move their Lotus here. We're going to use the wheel just to show it off. You can see if I place it here, it moves 2 tiles, 1 space clockwise. The orchid moved from there to there. The rose went there. Now it is host's turn, and they're just going to move their Jasmine. It is now guest's turn, and they will plant a chrysanthemum. It is now host's turn. They are going to move right here. Now, back to guest. I'm going to do a little setup here. There's a better way you can do this. Now I'll show you, they have a harmony bonus. I'm just going to skip it. I don't need it for the purposes that I'm trying to showcase here. It is host's turn. They're going to make a nonsense move. Back to guest's turn. They're shuffling pieces. They're going to move this here. It is now host's turn. They're going to move here. They're going to use their harmony bonus that they just gained to place a knotweed right here. But you can see the knotweed, even though it is a host tile, it still cancels the harmony of the host's flowers, and it also cancels the harmony of this lotus here. So because they are in the surrounding space with this knotweed, they cannot form any harmony. Now it is back to guest's turn. They're going to move their chrysanthemum here, and they get a harmony bonus. They'll be using the boat. They're going to use this boat on this knotweed, and you can see it gets removed from the game, and they have formed a harmony ring, meaning they won the game. And that's that. There's one last thing I'll showcase here. They move here, they move the boat. You could also use it on a flower. It just works like that. Very simple. And that is my example game. Guest wins here. I hope that helps. One last thing before I end the video, I'm going to cut to a game further along to show you one last part of the rules. Okay, I've progressed this game a lot by making a lot of very silly moves. This is not a real position you'll ever see in a game realistically, but I just wanted to show the one other way that the game can end without a resignation, and that is by placing all of your basic flower tiles. So guest right now has one basic flower tile remaining. They're going to plant this, and the game is ended. You'll see here that guest won, and that is because they have 1, 2 midline crossing harmonies. These being the midlines. I think I said there was 4 earlier in the video, but depending on how you look at it, there's really 2, just to potentially clear that up. This is a midline, this is a midline. And you can see that guest has 2 harmonies that cross a midline. Host has 0, so that means guest wins. And that's it for the example game. Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I am going to be making how to play videos for as many Pai Sho variants as I can, and if you have any feedback so that I can do better, please let me know in the comments. Bye bye!